Okay, so finally my talk has come, right? So let me start. So hello everybody. My name is Anish Manandhar, and I'm a software developer with over 8 years of experience in developing different type of applications. Um, I've been involved in extensive development of front-end technologies, server-side technologies, as well as database technologies, right? I'm very big fond of algorithms and design patterns. Currently, I work for Hamra Patro as an engineering manager. So today my talk is all about progressive web apps, right? These progressive web apps has been a very buzzword these days, right? Everybody's talking about progressive web apps. So what progressive web app is, why progressive web apps, and how can we leverage the best out of the progressive web apps is something that's talked about my session today, right? Okay, so let me start. Cool. Before going to the core part of my talk, I want to show some stat on mobile web versus native applications, right? So you can see there is a survey conducted among the top 1,000 mobiles versus top 1,000 mobile web properties, something like Facebook.com versus a Facebook native app, right? So you can see from the very early 2014 to 2016, there is a massive increment in engagement, in the mobile web reach, in case of mobile web reach, than that of native apps. You can see almost 11 million have a unique visitor in case of mobile web reach, but just 4 millions in case of native apps, right? And this is of data of 2016. This is now even more in case of 2019. So, whereas in contrast to this, in case of mobile web engagement, it is very less than that of native apps. You can see almost 200 minutes average app session per app, that then compared to the only 10 minutes in mobile web, right? So this is because native app supports the default features like push notifications that makes user re-engaged, right? And then smooth UI, janky scrolling, silky UI, right? And then it supports offline. That's why native apps has capability to let user engage more. But then there is downside of native apps, right? So you have a very high development and maintenance cost, right? So I work for Hamra Patro. So you might have used Hamra Patro, right? So we have our app in two different platforms. That's in Android and that's in iOS. So we have to regularly maintain in two different platforms, right? That's always a higher development cost for us, as well as maintenance cost. We have some cases like we just pushed our new release to the Play Store and App Store, and then after some couple of days, we encountered some serious bugs, right? So we had to fix it overnight. And that's how native apps is causing the higher development cost as well as maintenance cost. As well as it has high installation cost, right? So user typically have to go to the Play Store or App Store, right? Search for the right keywords, and then search for the right app, and then install it, have to wait for more than a couple of minutes, right? And that's a very lengthy technical process, right? So people might get easily bored and might cancel out the installation process. So, but on the next side, we have some downside on the mobile web also, right? So, in case of mobile web, it doesn't gives us offline experience by default, unless extensively defined, right? And it has very low engagement because it doesn't support push notifications, as well as no deeper integration to the hardware, because there's always a browser engine in between the front end and the hardware level accessibility. That's why it doesn't have that closer integration to the hardware level, right? As well as the app reliability is very slow in slow network, not that efficient. So this is where PWA comes in action. It has the capability of native apps as well as the result of the mobile web. So the progressive web apps lies somewhere between the higher capability of the native apps and the higher reachability of the mobile web. That's where the progressive web app comes into the action, right? So what is a progressive web apps? It's simple. It's nothing but just a bunch of web pages with some addition on top of it. That makes your web pages feel like native, right? So it has a lot of important features like connectivity independent. So what does this mean is that it can even work offline, or even in a very slow network, it can work smoothly. It has app-like feeling. So yeah, you have the shortcuts to access the progressive web apps. You have a very smooth UI that makes it feel like an app, native app, right? And it's fresh. You get the UI updated every time, data updated every time. It's safe because it's by default supports HTTPS, right? It doesn't work in HTTP. And it is discoverable because it's a web link. It's a web link which can be actually search engine optimized, right? Than that of native app. And it's re-engageable because it provides push notification. It enables push notification. That's why people can click on it and get re-engaged. And it's installable. You can install it on your native platform, get the shortcut, and instantly open it, right? So that's why it's installable and easily accessible. And it's linkable because it's a web link. Okay. So next is, what makes PWA like native? So number one is web manifest. It's nothing but just a JSON file with some key values. Some important keys like short name, icons for different responsive platform, start URL, background color, display, something like that. So if you add web manifest to your web pages, it looks like a web app, simple, right? So it gives the outframe, the outline of your web page like a native app. And next is service worker. So this is actually the core of your progressive web app. Service worker is nothing but just a JavaScript file. It acts as a proxy server. It runs behind the main thread of browser, and it's able to get to make intelligent offline caching and push notification. So you can see that service worker, we can configure service worker as offline first and API second caching strategy. That's why your UI became super fast. Your data came super fast because it always fetches from the local local data store, and then it timely sync with the main data store, right? So that's why user never run out of data. They always get data, and the UI seems like very fast. The next is, it is also responsible for getting the push notification. Even if your app is in sleep mode, web app is in sleep mode or inactive mode, you can get the push notifications. There is a messaging server on the right-hand side. It pushes some message to a specific topic, and then service worker have ability to get that message and reactivate your web app so that people get re-engaged, right? This is the main reason why re-engagement is very popular in case of progressive web apps. The next is Absol model. This is very interesting, right? So what Absol defines is that usually your app has a UX pattern, like they have a header, they have a footer, they have a sidebar, which remains same entire your application lifecycle. So why don't you just first fetch it and then cache it every time? Why don't you need to load it every time, right? This is what the Absol model describes about. So your header, your sidebar, your footer, everything remains same, almost same. And then those are cached on the local data store, and then the dynamic content can be get from the API or even on local stores, right? This is one of the reasons why progressive web app very fast. Okay, so I want to show you a demo of a real app which we made almost back in 2017. That's a progressive app, right? So, okay, so this is application name is Let's Read Asia. So this is a free digital library for children. This is progressive web app best, and it supports various languages like Nepali, English, Bangla, Indonesia, and a lot more, Myanmar, Urdu, like. So you can see it's very smooth, right? Right now this is a web app, just web app. So I just scroll to some of the pages. I read, this is a Nepali book, right? It's very fast. It's loading very fast, right? So now what I do is I'll just turn off my Wi-Fi, right? And then I reload it. It reloads instantly, right? You can actually access your data, everything offline. Everything is working offline. This is because you are caching your data, right? The next interesting thing is that, imagine this is your screen of your iPad, right? So there is a plus icon which you can install, right? So it allows you to install your application, and this can actually be run as a native app. Cool. This seems like a desktop or mobile app. It's running like a native app, but this is a progressive web app, and it's working absolutely offline. But there's an internet right now. Okay, cool. Yeah. So thanks. This is actually made by one of my friends, Asim Regmi. So I want to thank him for this project. So the next is, okay, some success stories, right? Some of the major brands that are now PW enabled are Google Maps. But there are some limitations I'll talk later on. Google Maps, Tinder, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter Lite, Uber, Lyft, Starbucks, these all are now PW enabled. So if you see I'll share some of the stats on the success stories. The Forbes, they increase 43% on session per user, right? 100%, that's almost double session duration. Tinder, the load time reduced from 12 seconds just to 5 seconds, right? And 90% smaller than a Tinder native app. That's a massive 90% smaller than Tinder native app, right? So now you can find your date much faster using Tinder, okay? So Uber, it takes less than 3 seconds to load even on 2G network. So progressive web apps are so fast and so less data consuming that it can actually work very fast even in a very slow 2G network, right? And Twitter Lite. In case of Twitter Lite, there's 65% of increase in pages per session, 25% in tweets, and 20% decrease in bounce rate, right? Cool. So, but every good things come with the limitations, right? I believe so. So good things come with the limitations. So this is something what I've taken from what web can do that today. So if you hit this URL on your native browser, then you'll get some checklist, right? There are some checklists. You can see some of the features with the green mark and some with the cross mark, right? So those cross marks are those things in a browser which PW cannot perform. Till that, right? So like near field communication, ambient lighting, SMS, contact, storage, task scheduling, proximity sensors, geofencing, these are not actually supported till that by progressive web app. Virtual augmented reality and wake lock are now supported in progressive web apps. This has been just supported in 2019. Right? So you can hit this URL, what web can do today in your web browser, and see what your progressive web app can actually perform and can actually not perform. This is because progressive web apps are browser engine based, right? So what your browser engine can do, that progressive web app can do actually. Sorry. Okay, so enhancement. There are a lot of enhancement in progressive web app you can do. Progressive web app doesn't come by default with whole lot of features, right? Some of the enhancement you need to introduce yourself. So this is one of the pattern called Purple 50 pattern. I believe this pattern should be known to every front-end developers, right? Web developers. So what does this indicate is that make your page less than 50 KB. Try to make your page less than 50 KB. Even more segregating, make your static content 15 KB and then maximum 35 of your data in your first page, right? So, and then the purple. For the purple, P stands for push critical resources. So what does this mean is that the most important resources like index file or maybe index resources JS, it should be pushed to your browser from the server with the use of HTTP2 as fast as possible, so that your browser can render your page as fast as possible, right? So prioritize your critical resources, push it as fast as possible using the HTTP2, and render the initial routes. What does this mean is that as soon as your first page load, every route should be rendered, right? So that now this is usable for the users. They are ready to use, they are ready to interact your page, right? And then after that, the secondary things like you can precast the remaining routes and then lazy load the heavy resources, maybe secondary resources file on demand. So this is a very important pattern that every web developer should know, right? Another is hybrid rendering strategy. So we all know that there are two types of rendering strategies for front-end. That's in server-side rendering as well as client-side rendering, right? So what I suggest is that make your first page render with server-side. This is because it can make your pages SEO optimized, and it can actually render, browser can render very fast because there's a ready-made HTML content from the server, and browser has only to render, not to manipulate that DOMs, right? So you can see that maybe in a very poor network, 2.5 seconds taken to be response from the server, and then within 100 milliseconds, everything is ready to use, right? And then on your deeper pages, on your inner pages, you can do as normal client-side rendering. So another is the use of Lighthouse. So this is a tool where you can audit and you can run an audit and you can see your web app performance, right? So I have run this for my project Let's Read Asia, and I found out we have 97% of performance, 71% acceptability. That's pretty low, right? Best practice is 17%, and SEO 97%. So all of you can actually run this tool. You can inspect your web pages, and then in the audit tabs, you can do run audits, and you can get a whole lot of metrics, right? So where are your drawbacks, where are your limitations, you can see in your applications. So this is provided by the Google and called as Lighthouse. Okay, enhancement. So actually this is not an enhancement, this is a feature, right? So PWA, progressive web apps, are now also available on the Google Play Stores. So you can put your progressive web apps on the Play Store too, as a trusted web activities. This has just been released, right? I think just last month, I guess. So you can make your PWA available on the Play Store so that you don't lose your mobile users also, right? Cool. So PWA are everywhere these days. So what I want to tell is that if you are thinking of making a very high performance web apps with the native-like features, then progressive web app can be your best option these days, right? So browser capacity has been increasing day by day. So and a lot of features has been added to the browsers. So progressive web app can do a lot more these days. But if somebody asks me if like progressive web apps are the replacement of native apps, then my answer is still no, because it solely depends upon your feature, your scope of your project, right? So native apps have their own capabilities, and progressive web apps have their own capabilities. I think there's no comparison between them. So, so what I will tell is that if you are a JavaScript developer and thinking of creating some mobile app, then PWA can be a very best option, right? Thank you. So at last, I would like to thank Leapfrog and Frontend United for giving me this opportunity to share some experience on my progressive website. Thank you so much.